Okay, here's a scene that pretty much to your eye looks like chaos. You'd have to study it for a while and try to get everything out of it, and still looking all through it, it would be somewhat like chaos. This is one depiction of it. It's an old ass drawing, but what you should see here, let me grab a pointer if I can. Where's my other one? Okay. Well, anyhow, you should see angels in here, like rampant. But then you also see things that look like butterflies right here. See the butterfly? And there's not just one of them. There's another butterfly or fairy looking thing right there. There's a few of them all over the places, but I see angels trumpeting and things and all this type of stuff. Behind them here in the background looks like the sun or the moon. Can't be easy, discerned. Another thing, if you keep looking around, keeps showing up in an iconography are fish. Yeah, it's odd. Right down here, there's a little dead catfish looking type thing. And oh, over here, there's a fish. Yeah. Of course, there's angels. There's got to be a counterpart. And right up here, there's a demon. So all you got to do is put the evil creature wings on it as opposed to the pretty bird wings. We talked about where that comes from and how deep and far back it goes far too many times, but I just want to mention it again. For all these things go with this same concept that we've been talking about so many times, and rebirth. In fact, the ancient name I used was chrysalis. It comes from butterflies. Yeah, remember the old Steve McQueen show, Papillon? And they get in a prison camp and all that stuff. I kept waiting for the butterfly in that damn movie because that's what papillon means. For a papier is what turns into a butterfly. Then I understood after the end of it what that was supposed to mean in the first place. And he did have a tattoo, but in French, the Romantic languages, and back to Greek, when they put O on the end of it, they want to deify something. Weird things are sewn in here too. There's anamorphic type creatures that, of course, you'd think is demonic too. They're mixed in, like right through here. And just oddities. There's this other butterfly falling down. So it's a big fight and a Titanomachy type of thing, or the angels in heaven and all that. And that's what it's meant to represent. There's a dead frog. There's another fish that's been gutted. Here's a butterfly fish. And it's not a butterfly fish, for that just is a flattened out looking fish, and they call them a butterfly because they went around coral to coral looking like a butterfly pollinating it. But of course, a butterfly is pollinated. A butterfly fish is generally eating the polyps off the coral, so it's a little different thing. But it still goes into that same ideal. So let's just wisp off into this and get into epic cosmic battles and the forces of creation and destruction and belief systems around the world that still, many of them contain this concept. We'll get into a few of them that we've talked about a bit and touch upon something that we didn't touch upon. This helpfully makes up for something that I said I was going to do a video on in response to somebody almost a year and a half ago now. But stories of epic cosmic battles can be found in many world cultures. In these battles, the lines are often drawn clearly, with the forces of good on one side and the forces of evil on the other. For some cultures, the cosmic battle began at the beginning of time and is responsible for the order of things as they are in the present. On the other hand, there are also battles set in the future, events that have not yet come to pass, but which may materialize at some point in time. Well, what we have here are two different things, though. We have, on the second hand, which we just talked about, an event that people are wishing for and hoping for, and in fact calling upon their God to make it happen, and all this type of stuff, that these great things will happen. And the Bible that we use, in fact, some of the things they said were going to happen didn't really happen the way that it was supposed to come out, really did it. But if you figure out what the story was really all about, where they took it from, and the heritage of all that, it really kind of did. Just not in the order that was set out at one point in that book. But the one that comes to mind is Armageddon, and I think we'll talk about that in a minute. For it's something that people believe that it's in the future. And it's been prophesized, and they kept it so. But the original originality of situation like this is they believe that something chaotic had just happened not long ago, or long, long, long ago, and that's the way things came out to where it currently was. You can even see that in the modern day, where we were looking at that picture and it had a lot of paganism and all kinds of stuff, and you go, well, out of all that chaos came where we are now, right? Would you be willing to believe that all of those people that were pagans had the belief that they had come out of chaos to where they are now, and to themselves it wasn't a chaotic point? Would you believe also that to some people one side was good and one side was evil? To another people that were friends of those people, they weren't evil, and the people doing harm to them were evil? And this forms all kinds of things that happened in small and in large. And I'm talking about, in this time, but all of a sudden that goes back to cavemen and stuff, and way the hell back. It's easy to understand. But let's look at some of these ancient cultures that we talk about so much here. See if I can get this centered just about right. The ancient Mesopotamians, Sumerians, if you will, and then what comes out of that through Babylon and so on, believe that a cosmic battle of epic proportions took place at the dawn of creation. This story is recorded in the Epic of Creation, known also as the Enuma Elish, which are the opening words of the epic. So quite often, and it's actually kind of the reason that we have a title nowadays, but we don't do the same thing people used to. Used to be what the opening words were trying to convey the whole thing. And so you'd start out and say, let me tell you about Da, and then go from it. And so that really became the title. A lot of biblical excerpts are taken in that same context. According to the myth, two primeval forces, Apsu, or the abyss, representing fresh water, and Tiamat, representing sea water, existed at the beginning of time. From these two gods sprang lesser gods. The resulting noise made by these younger gods caused great annoyance to Apsu and Tiamat. Although Apsu desired to kill his children, Tiamat, the lady, was against their plan. This resulted in the slaying of Apsu by his children, who were led by Ea, who we know as Enki. Ea, Enki, then became the chief god, for actually Enki means Lord of the world, and the world was known as Ki or Kia. And he had a son named Marduk, who was given the winds to play with. This caused great annoyance to Tiamat and some of the gods still residing in here. These gods persuaded Tiamat to wage war on Ea, Enki, and his supporters. As the other gods were unable to deal with Tiamat, Marduk offered to save them all, and we know this is coming down as the third iteration, really fourth, of a telling that probably goes way, way back, and in its initial setting was just in Tiamat and Bahamut and Ki and a story that gets taken from there farther and farther. Anyhow, they tell you that some of these gods residing with her because she had eaten and so on. And this, and you go, well, hold on, this is like the Cronus story and everything. Exactly. I've showed you comparatively where this all works out and everything, and then ends up coming this lightning storm god situation that all of them, going all the way through Thor to just, it's amazing. Yeah, El and Baal. All over the place, except for a place where it never rains anymore. In Egypt, they didn't quite have this going on. Well, they had a part of it. We've talked about that before, too. So this caused great annoyance, and of course, these younger gods, they resulting noise made these gods annoyed in the first place. Like, oh my God, all this noise and crap going on. Can you just shut the hell up, kids making too much, that kind of ideal. Something that way back when you could understand all the way to a modern time. So Marduk said he would save him, provided that he was allowed to remain as the leader of the gods after the primeval goddess was defeated. A battle ensued between Marduk and Tiamat, in which later was slain. He killed Tiamat. Additionally, Tiamat's new husband, Kingu, was killed as well, his body used to create the earth. Finally, Kingu's blood was used to create mankind, who were tasked with doing the work of the gods. I could go for hours on that, picking it apart and then describing and going off on a whole bunch of pictures and things like that. But here we see the idea of this resulting noise and concept that messed with them, and so this wanting to kill of the earth. Now, drop out the Marduk situation. I'm still telling you that's a later telling of the whole situation and the original thing that happened. For the original one were like planets where they had boom, 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 and the chaos of why the earth is here. And from that, all this BS happened, and that's the way that it is, and that's why we're here. And the way everything is, the way that it is. There's another form of this same telling where it's not actually that long ago, but something that happened long before them, but nowhere near of this primordial setting of what formed the planets. For in the very first one, this idea of Kingu and where he's killed, that ends up, it says that his face is forever looking upon her in reverence and so on, and you're like, well, then Tiamat became the earth mixed with Ki. Bahamut got destroyed, and that becomes the belt of many stars. And Kingu is the man in the moon, forever facing. And that's what that works out as. Now, in the other telling, where Enki is the creator of mankind, they took his blood along with clay, if you will, just like stories that you hear of the ancient Greeks. Well, just like in the Bible, It kind of describes the same situation where God just seemed to grab up some clay or some soil from the afar and make it, well, the afar means what's actually already there, but man, I could go on that. Let's try to keep on track here just a little bit. So, in this idea, they're making too much noise. Well, in another iteration of this idea of the flood that comes down, which is apparently not very long ago, it referring to something having happened before a long time ago, and this would have been the Younger Dryas event and the floods that had happened to all these people. And the third iteration is where the flood of the Bible actually sets at. For the third iteration is the great flood of the Sumerian plains that went 15 cubits deep and so on, just like it says in the Bible, but flooded out to the point that it killed everybody. Almost. And all the animals and everything, like it says in the Lament of Inanna, and the Lament for Ur. It's all meant to describe that too. So it's a retelling and a retelling and a retelling. And damn, that happened again. Well, God made a rainbow and it wasn't supposed to ever happen again, right? This is the reason for Abraham's leaving. And other situations, which we've already talked about, but in the fourth telling here, you have this idea that Marduk was the one that stepped in to save him because that puts him in prime position, and this is the storm goddess type concept. And a second telling of this storm goddess Nergal, who comes to help, by the way, and put together with the whole thing. And then strangely, her rib cage of Tiamat. This dragon is so damn huge that its rib cage ends up making the dome over the earth that holds out the cosmos and separates the land from the sky. And of course, the sky god is controlling the sky, and the sky is real important because we're breathing it, right? You go real high up on a mountain, it's hard to breathe because you're getting up to the edge of the sky, so you got to stay down here, and he's making you this little thin layer around the planet for you to breathe on. Real important. But also he's got the clouds going on and lightning and so on. And I did a whole series on storm gods. But in this other telling, Kingu's blood still was used to create mankind and were tasked for doing work of the gods. Now this is, of course, easily going along with the idea that there's these aliens. For even God of the Bible is not of this earth. He created it and everything, so he's alien to this planet. So they came down and did all these things. Well, that's what they said. And then whenever they asked them where they live now, a lot of them who were deceased away, as gods even did in their pantheon as things happened, they live up in heaven now. And if you're real good, you get to go to heaven too, and you get a star. Well, there's millions of them out there. Yeah, there's been millions of us that have died and been good enough. There's been hundreds of millions of us that died, but out of those stars, you get to make a star. That concept is carried through a lot of different people too. Let's just continue. I've showed this picture a bunch of times here. Let's try to get blinded where you can see pretty good. For this is Anzu bird here situation, a demonish type thing. It has a bat type jaguar face and claws on the eagle thing, and here's your conflagration situation again. And fighting him is Nergal. But you'll find that he has this trident that he's got with him. But I did a whole series on this trident situation. And see how it's a double trident? Isn't it amazing how that double trident is the symbol of a lightning god, all the way from pictograms of Zeus, through Baal, through people in ancient India, and all of these places? And that's one of those everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. And here's the symbology. It's not really kept much anymore. But at one time, Poseidon, or Enki, had this same type of weapon. Only one-sided, but with his staff he could create the earthquakes and all of the things. Thunder must come from that, all these type of things. So did Pluto. Dios Pater. Well, that's Dios Pater. Yeah, that's Jupiter. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And the storm gods. Yeah, but he's the god of the dead and everything. Yeah, there's this thing with Nergal and everything, so it goes out to, well, listen, if you're only living with the God of the living for your short life here, but then for eternity you're living on with somebody else, it should be, well, your father's going to be there, right? Yeah, and your father's divine there too, and Dios Pater. See how that works? Well, yeah, but no, listen, that says your dad's the devil and everything. No, the devil BS came out of that a whole bunch later and everything, and people don't want to die. But these people back then used to revere it a different way. Whenever you passed on, you went to a greater place. It's still in our current religions, right? Same thing. Oh, it's a pagan thing. But it's the same thing. He even has damn wings, too. A little more like a butterfly, though, huh? With the four. Well, he was an angel sent to protect. Oh, really? And Gabriel did that. Uh-huh. For in here, they're just going to call him Marduk and put him back as the sun god as a secondary situation, which we talked about black hole sun and how all that works. Saturn and Jupiter, which is Dios Pater, which is lightning god, which is, isn't that the Zeus? Isn't it funny? I've made these connections in other videos, but ancient Enuma Elish, order out of chaos. Similar stories of cosmic battles of origin of time are present as the war in the heavens is found in Christianity and Judaism, as well as the Titanomachy in Greek mythology. These battles serve to explain the reason for existing state of things, yet creating as a result of cosmic battle just one side of the coin. On the side, there are believers in a great cosmic battle that may one day destroy the human race. Well, I've made a few different references to it. This may be even why I wanted to do this and its connectives. For if we know that the Younger Dryas and what set off everything that made everything come out of chaos once before and made the chaos that we were talking about is going to happen again, and now we're finally at the ability where we can do something about it, we'd be stupid to sit around and wait for it. But there are a group of people that are waiting for the end of the earth, and they, believe it or not, selfishly just want it all to end during their lifetime. And they've wanted to for generations after generations because that's what their book said, and they try to make it happen. Funny thing is, Armageddon already happened in 73 AD, just like Jesus said. He said right there, verily I say to you, to his disciples, he said they was going to die and then come back and stuff, and they're like, what are you talking about? And he pulled them at the Mount of Olives and says, some of you standing here today will still be alive when this all happens and everything. A generation, blah, blah, blah. Then he tells a story about an olive tree. It all goes with a generation. It's 40 years. Jesus died when he was 33. Here we go, 40 years is 73. Armageddon already happened. Who rode in on a white horse? Titus. It went that way. Can't you see in the Roman Catholic Church, it went that way. He even told you it was going to. There's a reason for that. Is it a great prophecy and everything? I'm waiting for the world to end. Well, no, but we can sit around and let everything go into chaos again if you want to think that, oh, that's why all the BS is happening nowadays, is they're trying to make something, instead of everybody getting together on the situation, having this moment where we try to become as incredible as we can, kind of like when we tried to went to the moon and everybody tried to get together and all this situation. Oh no, they'd rather it try to go the other way with it. For if they all got together, there's no telling what they could do. There's a Tower of Babel reference. So what they have to do? Well, they had to take away what we had going on. Well, what we got going on? Well, everybody's speaking the same language pretty much now again. It's getting to that point. All of these things that apparently with the people that were actually referred to in the Bible were going on in ancient times. And you look at Proto-Indo-European linguistics, and it actually is somewhat of a verifier of that situation. I'm about to do another video on another linguistics look that's a little bit more broad and in-depth, and it shows you that maybe all three of those kids that came out of that boat and their languages that came from it, I have the ability to do so, and it wasn't done from that standpoint. Yeah, it's amazing. So here we see the Archangel Gabriel, is it? And Ariel and some of the other guys, and they're kicking the butts out of heaven. But then when they kick the butts out of heaven, there's ones that the names are almost the same. Their Ariel becomes Zariel and so on. And we're fighting that in the current D&D game that I play. It's amazing. And we've got to turn him back in situation. Well, one thing that always struck me as odd whenever I first heard the situation was that 1/3 of the angels thought that his idea was so damn good they were going to blow off the whole thing God had going on just to try it. And it's like, well, there's got to be more to this story than there's left to be. Well, what did they supposedly do? Well, all of a sudden now they're demons. Apparently they're the things, and they're the reason for demons. And so anything that you want to say bad happens and everything, you're going to go, oh, must have been them. Well, there's got to be a king of them. Oh yeah, he's ugly and he looks like this and da da da. That's funny because they say that he's the prettiest, but there are stories where Medusa was extremely beautiful, and then she got turned into this thing where people started saying something much different. Watch my Medusa video about how that can happen once she messes with the Medes. Medusa. Anyhow, the most famous of these battles can perhaps be found in the Bible's book of Revelation. According to literal interpretation of the book, there will be a great battle between good and evil at Armageddon or Harmageddo. Look that up, and Harmageddo will show you, well, it might be known by its Greek form, Armageddon. Ah, da da da, woo, asterisk, da da da. Thought about doing a video on just that now because they finally put that in there. Yeah, Wiki's getting tight with it. Some people are putting in some good articles, some good portions, fixing some things that have just been sitting around for 50 years or more and not being said anything different about whatsoever, even though there's lots of research showing the reality of it all. It's understood by some to mean the great site of Megiddo, an actual place in the Levant. According to this belief, the forces of evil will be defeated and evil will be thrown into a bottomless pit for 1,000 years. After this time passed, the devil will return to earth, gather his army, and wage war against God for one last time. After the devil's defeat, he will be cast into a lake of fire and brimstone, and a new era of peace under God's rule will commence. Well, what's crazy about that, if anybody's been paying attention, it never happened. Knock, knock. Who's there? Oh, reality. Reality who? Oh, no, man. It's me, reality. Oh, reality's not here, man. Remember the old Cheech and Chong thing? Some of you will. Look up Dave's Not Here. It's hilarious. Imagine that happening. Sometimes it's not hilarious. Wasn't supposed to be in their story. The cops are coming. Let me in. But so 1,000 years ago, this should have happened. 1,020 years ago, this should have happened. Only thing, it didn't happen. Did a video about this a long time ago. Probably ought to do it again. Like, hey, guess what? Armageddon, huh? Well, here's the thing that's supposed to lay out and happen. This never happened. Those people were never slaves to those people and rule in the house of this, that, and the other. It never worked out that way. They can't find the thing easy. It never worked out that way. Hell, I've spent a long time trying to show you the way it really worked out. You sure as hell can't say it came on and here we go with the Dark Ages and da da da. And all of a sudden, nah, it never happened. Somebody put down in the comments how you could configurate that out of what happened as to what they said was going to happen. Oh, well, it's yet to happen. Now, it already happened in 73 AD. Put it against what happened there, and you'd be like, oh, damn. Look at what Josephus said. Look at my video about how Josephus actually turned around with everything and twisted it into Titus's campaign is actually the reason for the writing of the New Testament, how it mocks it. Yeah, look up Flavian signature. There's a video on it this guy did. He's got a lot of connections. I had a couple that he didn't. He had a few that I had never thought of either. But there it is. Some people have made a few connections, but they never went, aha. Whenever I did it, I thought, aha. And I come to find out, oh, there are some people that have already shown this, but people want to dismiss it. Apologetics don't want to get a hold of it. Setting that aside, a similar apocalyptic battle can be found in the Norse Ragnarok, in which many of the Norse gods will be killed and the world submerged in water. Like the book of Revelation, Ragnarok is not, though, the end, but a prerequisite for a brighter future, as some of the gods will survive and a new world will arise and will be again repopulated with people. Well, that's what it really is, again, in the Bible, too. In one of their stories, they make a mistake and they put it in there, and you're supposed to repopulate the world, and it's like, but if they're just Adam and Eve, then where do you go? Oh, did a video on that too. But Ragnarok does the same thing, but this world will be submerged in water. So again, it's this Atlantean tale where this thing happened, where it got submerged in water. Well, why would they have that? Well, if you look at the ancient Norse people and stuff, and where they used to be in Doggerland, and that situations up there in that world and that area, and bullshit that happened, and everybody coming in, and this great war between them that ends up coming down to us, which I've shown in recent videos, is the mythology of fairies, brownies, pixies. For those are the people of Tuatha De Danann and the Picts. Yeah. The ancient time of magic. Want to do another video on that. Got an idea. It might be a fireside chat. But submerged in water, huh? But are we sitting around just waiting for something to smack the earth and reset it? Are we like that Tool song, sitting waiting for something, the bomb's going to come through real soon, just set it all back the way it used to be? F all this crap. It's gotten to be just a bunch of pandering crap, da da da. Heralds of Mankind, when they made up these stories, were supposed to have been something that showed a sign of the future, and then you were supposed to realize that you came out of chaos, and so that's what everything came out of, and it's cool now. Not you were supposed to be trying to make it go to crap and make it happen again. Doesn't this look a lot like those angels coming down and everything? That's a lot, but hey, it's actually a different depiction here. And what is this? Was the downfall of the Aesir. The sons of Muspel ride forth on the Aesir in Ragnarok. Yeah. Well, we've talked about Aesir originally too, and how that carries through a lot of these people, and how Proto-Indo-European connections connect with a lot of people's ancient pagan beliefs. But there was a time before time whenever all these people were connected, and they had very similar stories. And it's the reason it still makes sense. And it's the reason it was accepted by people in the first place, though through great plight. It's the reason we still have this information in front of you, though there was great plight to take all of that hidden. To conclude, epic cosmic battles can be found in many cultures, as they help explain the world as it is or provide a message of hope for people. Stories of such battles inherited from our ancestors will continue to be told, and new stories will be made by our society. The popularity of such works as The Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, which contain epic battles fought between good and evil, is proof that mankind continues to be enthralled with such tales. Yeah, but I think a lot of people want peace, but they want a new tale. But I would think that most people don't want it all go to crap or a great kaboom to happen to have to set it off. Want something like that to happen during their lifetime. Although sometimes you get all fed up. We sure don't want Mother Nature to turn around and get pissed off again. So, coming out of chaos is the setting for many of these people's places, but understand that at the time, whenever they were doing it, at the time of this Renaissance painting, at the time of this, at the time of that, they all thought they were coming out of order, or coming out of chaos into order. During my lifetime, I think like we're coming out of somewhat what used to be an order situation into chaos. Some people are conflagrating it almost, it seems to be pushing for it to happen. When given the choice between A or B, they're like, oh, B. And you're like, what? And that just leads other ways. Anyhow, maybe that'll spark a little bit of conversation down in the comments there. But I even find a salamander way the hell over here. What's that got to do with things? And the goose that's right beside it. And the goose that's a half plucked goose that's, oh man, there's a lot of symbology in this. And if you look right up top, there's, ooh, it's hidden now. For if we let that go away, here's that all-knowing eye type floating down thing. Well, no, that's just really an angel pointing downwards with her hands on top of her head. But doesn't it look like a floating eye? For in fact, doesn't that that's what the eye symbol is made out of? And oh snap! There's been a lot of times when we went through chaos, it seems like, and the only time that we get to do something good and carry on to the next level is whenever it's not in that situation. Why put yourself in that situation? Why sit around waiting for an asteroid? Why not turn around and, in fact, the act of trying to actively do something about it will set forth the other way? What the hell?